I would like to introduce Meres-Sia Gabriel. She can tell you a lot about herself, but I want to let you know that she was a French teacher. She is an artist extraordinaire. Her poetry is, it makes your mouth drop open. And also she has a BA and an MA from Howard University and the Middlebury College in school in France. And she taught French in high school. I missed that part. And her book, I Twirl in Smoke, In the Smoke, is a book of her poetry and stories. Meres-Sia also went to the Oakland Community School because both of her parents were members of the Black Panther Party. Are there any poets in this room? People who write poetry? You don't have to go like that. Just raise your hand on up. Okay. Oh, great. Okay, how many people would like to write poetry? You're sort of like, yeah. Your voices, I say this all the time, as you know, your voices are so important. Absolutely important in this world we live in, as scattered and fractured as it is. Your voices are important. So Meres-Sia also has two beautiful daughters. They love the arts as well, don't they? 9th grade and 5th grade. Yeah. And you can sit all the way forward, you know, no hiding. Everybody can sit forward. Yeah. Thank you. So please welcome Meres-Sia.
I just wanted to start by saying that when she asked if anyone was a writer, and then your eye twinkled and you did this, and then she said, do some people want to write, and then some other hands went up. Whatever you see in somebody else, and you like, oh, I want to do that, that means it's already in you. So you already have it. If you're thinking about it, if you want to be a poet, you're already a poet. I write a little bit, you're a writer. That's just what I learned, what I picked up, what I figured out through the process of creating. Everybody's creative, everybody is a creator, everybody is art, everybody is the process of creativity in motion. And if you think you want to do it, you think you can, you like it, you might make, that's it, you're it, that's it. In terms of this class, do you have any questions for me starting off as a Panther Cub is what we call ourselves, right? So I'm 40, so in 74, I was born into the Black Panther Party. And my mother left when I was 2, but my father stayed to the very end. My mother joined in Seattle, and then she came to Oakland, she met my father, had me, and then my father stayed to the very end. Then at the end was, did anybody know when the end was?
82.
Did she say 82?
That's what I hear all the time.
Really? Okay, I have to verify that. I understood the end to be 80, but we did have summer school through 82. I do remember going to the summer school, but we can check with her to make sure, yeah. So that's what I was gonna say. I went to the summer schools through 82. I was in preschool when my mother was in it. I still have memories though in preschool, but there are some people who went to the school itself who were a lot older than me, and they have more memory. And they weren't necessarily Panther children because the school was open to everybody. So they weren't necessarily Panther children. So just based on what you've been learning so far, do you have any questions about that you would like to ask me?
Being a Panther Cub, did you feel pressure coming up, like you had to do something, like it was your responsibility to like pick up where your parents left off?
That is so good. So just starting right now, my father just recently, I want to say within the past 5 years, started traveling internationally with his book, and sometimes I would go with him. And then he works with young people when he travels, and they'd say, oh, how does it feel to be with a famous dad? And I'm like, he wasn't famous growing up, right? Not only that, My mother told me, don't ever join an organization. My mother had different experiences growing up, right? And then my father, he never said anything. I didn't know he was the minister of culture. I didn't know that he, because of his drawings and renditions of the police, that became popular to call the police pigs. I didn't know. And in high school, I went to an independent school for a couple of years. And my father said, don't tell anybody that I was a Panther. They weren't ashamed because there were people in our community that I always interacted with who knew, right? And I'd be like, you know my dad, Emory Douglas? And they look at me like they trying to peer into my soul, like, that's your dad? And I'm just like, I don't, you know, because I didn't know anything other than just what I knew just from being in it. Now, say your question one more time, just so I can remember.
Just the pressure, like, did you feel like?
Okay, the pressure. So that, there was no pressure, obviously. My mother was like, don't join any kind of organization. And then my father didn't say anything, and I didn't learn about what he was doing till I got into college. I started following him locally when he would give slideshows, and then I was learning about the party through his artwork. And then when I got to college, I met some other Panther Cubs. There's out there that my father was close to, and they, read this book. So I read some books, and then I found out more stuff, right? So there was absolutely no pressure. And so sometimes people are like, I'm gonna tell you another reason why there was no pressure. On the outside, right, people glamorize and idealize. One person even said, sometimes I wish I was born at that time so that I could just, but I grew up hearing the stories about people being murdered and being sent to jail and all of those things. So I never felt like, I wish I was born at that time, right? I'm gonna be very honest with you that the idea of protest and activism, it's in me, whether I know it or not, right? When I tell people certain things, they're like, duh, you haven't. But in my mind, I was like, I'm not really interested. Not in the sense of that's a bad thing, but I was just like, it's a scary thing for me. Yeah, so growing up, it was a scary thing for me. But it still was very much in me in the sense that I'm very much like my father, and he left the Black Panther Party, and he had different jobs, marketing, graphic design and things, but he would leave if it contradicted his values and morals. And so then he wound up staying with the Sun Reporter, the black newspaper. So I'm very much like him in the sense that I always was very conscious about what I choose and what kind of work I want to do and how I want to give my energy. So my 9 years of teaching, I've always taught at alternative education. I taught in continuation school. So my first school was Far West, middle and high school, and then BTech, Berkeley Technology Academy, which used to be East Campus, if anybody know. Okay. So when I was talking to another friend of mine, who do you know Attica? Yes. So me and Attica, we talk a lot. And then we talk a lot about our upbringing and what we think and this and that and the other. And I was saying, I'm not really revolutionary, this and that. And she was like, 9 years in continuation school, you working? And I chose that. It's not like I did it because by default. I was like, I want to work with the toughest kids. I want to work with the kids who came from where I came from, So, yeah, but there was never any pressure to do that at all. My parents were they were hands-off in a certain way, very hands-off in a certain way, but molding me in a different way, yeah.
So, you said that your dad told you not to tell people that he was a member of the Black Panther Party.
When I was at that private school, yeah.
Why do you think he did that?
So probably at that time, it was like right around, it was 1990. Hip hop was just starting to embrace Black Power, right? And the Black Panther Party and all that stuff. And I was at a private school, so I guess in his mind, because he never said that before, I think he felt like at that school, maybe be careful. And the funniest thing is that my math teacher, when I went into his office to see him, he was like, was that your dad on TV last night? There was a documentary, and he was like, oh, it was great. He was like totally embracing of it, right? So it was interesting. I guess he just had a concept, like maybe these people might be too conservative. You don't want to cause problems for yourself kind of thing. then when I went to graduate school, no, I wasn't even in graduate, I was in college, but I was doing a study research thing in France. And it was like midnight. And my roommate and I, she was from Howard too, I went to Howard. And we just, whatever, the TV's on, I'm not paying attention. And then she was like, is that your dad? And I looked at the TV and he's being interviewed in some documentary. It's being translated from French into English. And then I read, I was the Minister of Culture of the Black Panther Party. That was the first time I found out. And I have an excellent relationship with my father. I'm very close to him. He's never told me, oh, I was the Minister of Culture, or oh, I did this, or I did. He does his art constantly. He'll ask me, what do you think of this, what do you think of that? But he never told. So I learned from just following him around and TV. And but sometimes, like, some people will say, oh, you have such a legacy. But it's not my legacy, it's everybody's legacy, right? The work that the Panthers did was for the community, right? So it's everybody's legacy. I just happened to be born to the person who did this particular thing within the party, but you tell me that it seems that the party, it wouldn't have functioned without the whole masses of everybody that was the workers, right?
No.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have lasted 2 days.
Right. Right. So it's everybody's legacy because it was for everybody. Yeah.
Later, will you tell students about traveling with your dad to Chiapas, Mexico?
Sure.
Okay, that is extraordinary.
Okay.
Okay, my question is, were you a part of the children that had to stay in the dormitory? And if so, did you guys create like a sisterhood, brotherhood within the children that stayed there?
So I was a baby and I did stay in a preschool and I did stay overnight because my grandmother eventually started coming to get me on the weekends or something. She started coming to get me regularly because she felt like I wasn't getting enough individual family attention. So I do have some memory of being in the preschool, just, you know, being a baby with a tantrum kind of thing. I remember throwing a tantrum and doing Ring Around the Rosie or something like this. And then, but in terms of the dorm, I remember visiting, but like, did Maya, was she in the dorm? And okay, so I remember Maya when she's like 3 or 4 years older than me, maybe.
How old are you?
I'm 40.
Yeah, she's 5
Yeah.
years older than you.
Yeah, so her daughter, I used to, as a young child, I used to really admire her. And so I remember visiting the dorm, but I didn't stay in the dorm other than the preschool. Yeah.
So can she do some of her poetry?
Oh, well, I had asked her if they had any questions, but do you want me to do this, talk about the Zapatista thing first, or do some poetry, or? I'm into poetry. Okay. So one I was thinking of sharing with you today is, I call it my whips. It's a work in progress. So it's just the first, stanza. And I feel it's connected to my upbringing as a Panther, but you figure it out. So, let's see. 9 to 5 is slow suicide. It's a hostage situation with you inside. It's a hostile takeover, but like a cosmetic makeover, it look good from the outside. Like, look, mom, no hands. I got a job with a retirement plan with bragging rights and benefits, and I'm gonna stick with it till I get sick. Now I give them 40 hours and I still stress over money. I make hard decisions like be homeless or be hungry. It's an ill situation, but I still think it's funny how I could work and be poor in the land of milk and honey. It's an ill situation, but I still think it's funny how they move the finish line, so we just keep on running. And the cycle gets vicious like a pit bull's temperament. One day we look up and wonder where all the time went. We pack our regrets and plan for retirement, then fall through the cracks like a victim of the environment. But I rebel, I rebel, I rebel, I rebel, I rebel, I rebel. This is my rebellion. So that's the first stanza. That's all I have to share so far. And so rebellion, feeling like, I feel like I grew up rebelling. And And I assume that that's, you know, part of the legacy amongst other things, but just what I learned about rebellion though is this, like, it's a split second for me. Rebellion shouldn't be forever. It's just a split second where I look at something and say, oh, this is not it. Let me change it and create something new. So then rebellion passes into creativity, right? So, she wanted me to talk about Chiapas. I could share some more poetry too later, but unless you, yeah, okay. Well, let me, before I talk about Chiapas, when I wrote my book, I had a good friend who was like a diehard Tupac fan, and you know, and he was like, you gotta write your book about being a Panther Cub, and he just used to always talk about Tupac and talk about how I gotta do something, you know, I gotta do something. And as far as I know, maybe somebody knows better, Tupac didn't actually do any music related to being a Panther, right?
He talked about his mother was.
Oh, okay, so he has a song that specifically talks about being a Panther. Okay, so when I wrote my book, I was like, it's not about being a Panther child, but I had to write what was inside of me, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, did I miss the boat, you know, because I don't know when I'll write another one or what, you know. But I asked my dad what he thought about it, and he said, in the Panther Party, we didn't teach you what to think, we taught you how to think. And he said, this is very much a part of your legacy as a Panther child, because you took your life experiences, you analyzed it from your unique perspective, and then you put it out there. And he felt very like inspired by the work. So in that sense, it's a part of my legacy as a Panther child. It's a very introspective rebellion, right? Because I'm looking, it's a very personal experience. It's not political necessarily about things outside, but I'm very much looking deeply within. And from what I've learned is that from your unique experience, you tap into the universal, right? So you talk about your particular experience as a black young man sitting here at Merritt College, and if you're vulnerable and you really share what's really happening, he's going to be able to relate to it. And then he can also talk about his specific experience, whatever it is. If you're vulnerable, she's going to be able to relate to it. So it really has, because sometimes people get, and I even got caught up in this trap, but sometimes you get caught up in a trap of, is this too black, or is this too this, or I can't just write about being a woman, or I can't just write about, but really everything, anything that you do, if you're vulnerable and you're honest, everybody's going to be able to relate to it and pick up pieces from it, right? So that is what I wanted to say about that. I'm working on I'll talk more about the book. I'm working on a EP, which is a small album. So that's where the Chiapas trip comes in. Because I got inspired, well, in high school I used to rap. So I already had that. And then I did like I did a demo, and we shopped it. We had a manager, and at the time, Jamie Foxx was just starting to become big. Our manager had some relationship with Jamie Foxx, because I met him at the Marriott, you know. Woohoo! but he would, anybody see, he wouldn't remember me. But when I went to Chiapas, Mexico, everybody know that's very deep in the southern part of Mexico, near Guatemala. I was in San Cristobal, and my father had gone because there was Idilo Cultural Center. There's some Mexican artists and he was very interested in the connection between the Zapatista movement and the Black Panthers. Anybody know what the Zapatistas are? Can you share?
A little,
yeah.
Otherwise known as EZLN. They were like in the memory of Emiliano Zapata, who was a revolutionary in the Mexican Revolution, and they sprang up in 1994 in response to NAFTA, which was the North American Free Trade Agreement, and because it encroached on the rights of indigenous farm workers.
Right.
And so they were a guerrilla group responding to that.
Yeah, with the philosophy that he who works the land owns the land, right? If you work the land, it's yours, right? And so there were a lot of correlations, and they include a lot of art in their work. And so this artist, Eddie Dilo-Cultural, Caleb, and also Mia, the co-directors, started a project, and they wanted to show the link between that. So they had my father come out and work with the Zapatista community, and they did renditions of his work. So have you seen the Black Panther Party paper? Newspaper, yeah? So you can imagine how it is. It's like that. And then there's an image, and there might be a little image of maybe of Huey or something at the top, like that. So these women in this one particular community did renditions of the Panther paper on cloth, though, big cloth. And like my father has one image of the woman with the afro, and she has the gun, right? I love that he had like all these women in these fear with the baby and the gun, right? Like how much more fierce can you get, right? So, but these women, so they did the rendition. She has the afro, and instead of the gun, she has the stalk of corn, right? So they would replace the gun with the corn, because from what I was told, after '94, and there were a lot of people who died from that, so they decided that they don't want to necessarily use the guns like that, but they want to still have that show, that the energy, there's still an energy, right? So sometimes they'll carry like a wooden thing, like a rendition of a gun, just to give that force, that energy that comes with it. That's what I was told. So anyway, they had the woman with the stalk of corn. And then for the border, in this community, they had certain flowers that represent their community, and they put the flowers and embroidered the border like that. And then where Huey would be at the top, they had the image of a Zapatista there. And then the Panther Party has the panther as their logo, and the Zapatistas have the snail. So they would put a little snail at the bottom. And it's beautiful. I don't know if my father showed any of that when he was here.
No, he didn't. He might have showed a slide. I have 2 pieces that he brought back.
Okay.
I should bring them to class if somebody reminds me. They're gorgeous.
Yeah, it's amazing work. So when I was there, I was going because my dad had said, oh, I'm going to Zapatistas. And I was like, what Zapatistas are you talking about, right? I graduated from Emiliano Zapata Street Academy. So I was familiar with Zapatistas, but I didn't think there was still activity. I didn't think that there was still a group that you could call Zapatistas. And so he was like, I'm going to work with the Zapatistas. And I'm like looking at him like, you're crazy old guy. And then he came back from his first trip, and then he showed me this stuff. And I was like, I got to go, because he was going again for an Indigenous Peoples Conference. I said, I have to go. So I just went to bear witness, to a testimony, you know, that, oh, I was there with the Zapatistas. And then I was invited to speak at the conference. So in true form, when you are called to do something, if you say you're a writer, you being called to write, you got to write, right? So I had 3 days, and I figured it out. And then I shared my speech with them, and it was wonderful. And it was translated into 2 indigenous languages plus Spanish. That's what they did for all the speakers. And then my father did his presentation. Another thing is I was invited to perform. Now, prior to this, I hadn't performed I had performed once, a few pieces in my book, but it was something quick. So they wanted me to perform something, they wanted it to be kind of revolutionary. And if you read this book, I didn't think there was anything really activist, revolutionary, aside from the fact that I think love is revolutionary.
Yes, it is.
What they seemed like they were going for, I was like, I don't know if I have something that fits what they're looking for, right? So I looked through, I said, okay, I have 2 pieces. I had one in there, which was inspired by Sandra Cisneros' You Bring Out the Mexican in Me. It's called You Bring Out the Oakland in Me. I had that one. And then I had one that I was working on called Fake Griots. And so I was like, I'm gonna do those pieces. I rehearsed with the musicians like twice, and then I performed, and it was so magical for me. And everybody said that they really liked it. And the director of the Cultural Center, she said, if I had what you had, I would go for it. And I was like, you know what? I think I better go for it, because I'm gonna be 40 soon. Not that time matters, you know, but for me, everybody has their own timeline. And for my timeline, I felt like I needed to go for it. So now that's where you have me working on an EP, small album of 3 songs, and it'll be out maybe in May, I think. I'll share with you a little bit of one of the songs. It all has music, but I'm just gonna share out together this one, and it's called Bliss. Do you know where you're going to? Have you ever loved something so much it was hurting you? Have you ever turned your back on your bliss though you wanted to? Lift up its face and embrace it like lovers do. I look around and I see things that remind me. If I don't live it now, one day my life will be behind me. And the gifts that I said I would leave for the children will be just broken promises I doubt I'll be forgiven. So I'm gonna keep writing till I reach my grave. Poetic compositions like sermons on Sundays. Try to stop me, I won't listen. Like a slave, I'm a runaway. I found something I love, now I'ma hold on and make it stay. I'm gonna keep writing and this bliss will stay. Bliss like the first kiss my first lover gave. Just like the first time that first love was made. These things are gone like waves washed away, but I'm gonna keep writing and this bliss will stay. That's just the first stanza. Wow. You know, and writing is anything, right? Keep dancing, keep whatever. I'm gonna keep teaching about the Black Panther Party. Whatever, right? I'm gonna just keep doing whatever I'm gonna do and make your bliss stay, right? So, any questions?
Are you gonna you bring out the Oakland?
Okay, I can do that one.
The other class, Sociology of Women,
Yeah.
was floored by that.
They really like it.
And then they wanted to come to this class.
Okay.
Again, but I don't know if they were able to.
I'll do it before we leave.
Okay.
Are there any questions before anything? Nothing? Yeah, you have a question.
Yeah, how was it performing in Mexico?
Okay, so that was wonderful. And you can go on YouTube and look my name up, Meres-Sia, and then you'll see the video of it. I had locks then, so don't be thrown off like, who is this woman with locks? That's not her. But it was so beautiful because the musician, well, one of them spoke English, the other two spoke Spanish. And then whenever I hear a foreign language and I'm in a place where it's constant foreign language, my French just clicks. That's the only foreign language. So I'm like, you speak French? I know I'm in Mexico, but I'm like, you speak French? You speak French? And then I did find a couple of people who spoke French, and they wanted to speak French with me, so I got along pretty good. And then I could pick up some of the language, just because there's similarities in the language sometimes. But so the violinist, he spoke English. He kind of was the lead, maybe because also he was the most seasoned, and then because he spoke English, so he kind of helped shape the mood and help the other musicians understand what to do. It was very organic. Like when I performed that piece one time, it was with a flute player. Yeah. And it was just like not a big performance thing. So this was 3 musicians, really 2, and then the drummer came at the last minute, the cajon player. So how was it, you mean, in terms of as an artist or?
Well,
in what way?
As an artist and then like preparing, because didn't you write a piece for the?
Oh, okay. So the piece that I wrote that was for the conference. Yeah, I wrote a piece for the conference. And then the performance was something separate, but it was both in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
And it was just something to be really in the moment of that thing. And these were like really good musicians. So I was like, how do you say? It's kind of like when you decide to do something and then your wish is not only granted, but it's granted with the highest level, right? Like, it wasn't just like, oh, I have a wish, I could perform, but then they're like, okay, but you can perform with some consummate musicians. And then I was like, oh, that also helped me know, like, okay, I can do this, because it was a good experience for them and for me. It was really, I don't know if that answered.
No, you didn't.
Okay. Any other questions? No?
What about for making your book? So you had all your poems, and then like, how did you go about getting it published? Okay, so this is a book of poems and stories. Okay. It's self-published. So my publishing company, I named it Palm Oil Press, because I trained capoeira for a long time, and in capoeira we say like something if you say it has ashe, you say it has dende. Dende means palm oil actually.
right? But so palm oil and ashe means like your power, like, so it, for them in that language, it means, there's an association of palm oil just being very magical, I guess, right? So I named it Palm Oil Press.
So is your company?
My company
You started
for
it?
my book.
Oh.
Yeah, and thank you. And it's poems and it's stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I had something I wanted to get out, like the first, is it called an epitaph when you have the little quote in the beginning? I don't know. Well, the quote that I have in the beginning, it says, what is that? First the cup of sorrow becomes at last immortal wine. And that was, I knew that that was the theme that I wanted. I wanted to show a progression from darkness into light, from sadness or sorrow into, you know, expansion, from whatever. I wanted to show like just a healing taking place, right? So it begins with, there's conversations with me and my mother, or poems about my mother and misunderstandings in that relationship, and where I think that comes from, and then my relationship with my grandmother who also raised me, and then my relationship with myself and as a woman, and then my relationship with my daughters, and how I change as a mother from the way my relationship with my mother was, you know. And then there's an interview with my mom too, so that her voice is also heard, you know, in it, from her own perspective. And I can share with you some pieces in there. The prologue, I'll share the prologue. I'll just give you a couple of pieces from here. So, these poems are not perfect. Some of their lines are too long, too common, offbeat. They're not supermodels on billboards hugging cars and magazine ads. These poems are maroons, carving existence in jungles and mountains. They are, I'm sorry, but every so often I forget what I'm saying. Too many things on my mind, right?
Feel that.
All right. Thank you. Let me start over. Oh, yeah. So these poems are not perfect. They are not supermodels on billboards hugging cars and glossy magazine ads. These poems are maroons, carving existence in jungles and mountains. They are a woman in the street shouting at her baby daddy loud and unheard. They are her baby daddy standing quietly as she shouts, trapped by patterns he thought he would break. These poems are the misunderstandings between us. Generations of mothers and daughters, grown sons who've never met their fathers. These imperfect little poems are everyday people, vulnerable, awkward, alive. That's the prologue, right? So and I wrote that because I was living on 7th and Mandela, and you could hear a lot of stories underneath your window. So you can hear the baby mama shouting at the daddy quiet, and you know, all the pain and the anguish and the this and the that, and then it's, yeah.
What actually made you become a self-publisher?
Oh, so when I wrote it, I didn't want to waste time sending it out, getting rejection, sending out, see who like it, this, and that. I like it. Everybody I know like it. I'm just going to publish it and put it out there. So that's what I did, and I just researched how to do that so that it can look as professional as it is. Right, yeah. And I just built the book, you know, a little bit at a time.
And you can find out how to do that online.
You can find out how to do it online, and I had a book that actually told me about how to do it, and I worked with a group of people to help get the project going. Other people who had other projects, we supported each other in getting our projects fulfilled at that time.
So did you have it, now that you have your own self-publishing company, are your books in stores like Barnes and Noble and, you know the other books?
Right. So this book is at Marcus Books in Oakland. There might be one copy left. Because people tell me when they buy it, like, I bought your book, so I calculate it. Okay, that's about one copy left. And then It's also at Laurel Bookstore. I have it with me, so it's also through my website. That, you know, because with the bookstores you share a percentage. And I've been meaning to get it up on Amazon, but then I got caught up in my new project, which is the the album, and I really, this is going to be available through the internet and through CDs, because I'm really passionate about, even more so than that, even though I'm passionate about that, I'm like even more so. So yeah, that's how it is. You had a question?
Hold on, 2 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So now that you have your own publishing company, are you willing to help young artists publish their own books, or would you guide them, or do you know, like, what does it take to write a book?
Right, so I'm always loving to help people understand whatever it is they want to understand about it, to the extent that I can share that information. I love to share that information. I also, from time to time, I give writing workshops, and even within those workshops, I love to, that's a part of the workshop. I mean, it can be a part of the workshop. So yeah, I mean, I can give you my information and like that. Yeah, I love sharing that information. And, yeah.
When did you find, when did it hit you that writing was your thing?
So, you know, when I was little, I had a little book, and it's like a little kid's book with these starter sentences. What do you want to be when you grow up? And what are you going to be? And I remember putting, like, I'm going to be a mother, a teacher, and a writer. So I'm a mother. I just retired from teaching after 10 years, and I wrote my book. So I always knew that I liked writing, and you know, because actually I'm thinking, my grandmother used to always tell me stories. She would press my hair on Sundays and tell me a story. Always tell me a story, and the story always involved my 2 little bad cousins and me, and the bad ones getting us lost in the woods and all this stuff, right? And so I was always like, it was, you know, it's divine. You choose your family, you choose I believe, you choose what your story's gonna be, whether you know it or not. And so she was very much a storyteller, and always told me. So I was always a storyteller or intrigued. I went to the museum one time in elementary school, and there was a professional storyteller telling stories. She was on the stage, and she was like so dramatic, and I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. Storyteller. And you make money doing it? I want to be a storyteller. So yeah, I always knew that that's what I wanted. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there like a difference in the process when you're writing for like without music or with music?
Oh, now see, that's a good question, because a lot of people, well, I won't say a lot. I know people that write with music, and they say to write with music, but I've never written with music. That's the thing. The music
comes afterwards?
The music comes afterwards for me, because I don't have access to a lot of instrumentals, or, I mean, I know that they're on YouTube or whatever, but I don't really know what I like to build my own music. So I write my poetry, and then I collaborate with a guitarist, David Goodlett, and we're very musically compatible. So he'll hear something, and he'll play it. Then we'll record that, and I'll listen to it. And then I'm like, I hear this sound, and we find that sound on his computer. And I hear this sound, and then he'll arrange it. And then I'm like, I hear some background singers, or I hear it, and then we get the singers, and then the singers that we know, they figured out, oh, okay, I hear a ooh, ooh, or whatever, so then they do that. And so it's very much a collaborative effort. I know people do write with music, but I don't.
It kind of comes from the rhythm of the poem in the first place?
Yeah, I'm actually a rhythmic writer to begin with, yeah, that was already. And even in high school, when I used to write raps, I didn't write to music. My 2 partners who were with me in the group, the guys, they wrote to music. I just never did it. I would try one day, but not yet.
Probably help you do a little bit.
Maybe without knowing it, huh? Yeah. And was there another question?
Yeah, have you ever thought about publishing any kind of musicals or plays? From
yeah, you know, my aunt keeps telling me, I was like, the album's almost done. She's like, good, and then we're gonna work on your 1-woman play, your 1-woman production. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm not there yet. And but maybe later. I have a friend who is doing that. He was a rap artist from Flipside, Piper, and now he has his play, 1-man play, Cops and Robbers. So I mean, everything is open to you, right? You start one thing and then you decide, just like I did, I was so passionate about this book and I still am, it's my baby. But once I realized, well, I was suppressing the music in me and I opened that up and I was like, this is what's gonna carry it all, you know, and then who knows, in a few years I might really be like, cause I'm up on stage performing, I may be like, oh, I need to act, but I don't feel it right now.
As a writer, I'm guessing that you get your inspiration from a lot of different places. Do you ever feel like an event, something will happen where you feel a responsibility to write about a particular thing, like with the thing that came to the NBA? I don't know if you're familiar with the NBA and the racist owner. And that stuff, like something like that happens and you feel like I need to write about that?
That's so interesting. I did used to feel like something will strike me. I don't necessarily feel like I need to write about every injustice that I see, right? But sometimes something will strike me. And then I will write a response to it like I did in the other class that is complex. And I can share, I don't know what time is the class over?
12:15, but you can, why don't you share it now?
Okay, I can share, so I'll share that with you.
What other class did you ask?
No, I was agreeing with you for her to share it with us.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I'm taking the girls, my daughters were like 12, I'm taking them to Water World, it's a birthday, we listen to the radio. And then all of a sudden, they singing along, but then all of a sudden they stop and they looking at each other, they looking at me, and I'm like, okay, something's happening, because I tuned it out. We don't usually listen to the radio, but I'm gonna be cool, mom, it's a birthday, right? So then I listen, and he's instructing on fellation, you know, how to pleasure him, right? So I was like, this is deep, this is on the FM radio, but y'all know it's there, y'all hear it, right? The raunchy, the ratchet music, right? And I was just like, this is so deep that I can't even just for a minute take my guard down and just be oblivious and let the kids just be kids, right? And when we was growing up, I mean, it was always sexual overtones, but it would be couched in something more beautiful, right? Yeah. It's just not beautiful, right? And so I was like, oh no. So I had to do something about that. So that's this one. It's also on the EP. It's complex. The industrial media complex gives little black girls a complex. It's hard to explain, it's complex. It's not just music, it's context. Cause pimps don't take vacations. They hustle on streets and your local radio stations while rappers instruct on fellation. Little Deja sing along as if under sedation, her childhood lost in hypermasculine imaginations. In any other situation, this would be child pornography or child exploitation with lyrical sodomy. It's the FM version, but I still cringe inside of me. They undress my femininity like there's no soul inside of me. And we dance to the assault, accessories to the crime, while radios are programming music in our minds. When Tiffany sees mirrors, there's a vacancy. She only sees a body that she's learning to use enticingly. She's 10. But kids are grown these days. She got an iPhone and an Instagram, and the electromagnetic waves are morphing her identity to fit inside a TV screen, to fit inside the image of a weak MC's rhyme scheme, filled with auditory fallacies of what a woman ought to be. And likely he doesn't like women, actually. He just wants to destroy and incarnate them gradually. In this neo-American slavery, the Tiffanys and the Dejas are told that they are the sum of their sexual stimulation. Mama will preach to them, but they run into the same old situation, because pimps don't take vacations. They hustle on streets and radio stations. And this wicked industrial complex has targeted our girls from the onset. Of all the sex trafficking victims, 40% got black in them. I am the bringer of life from the heavens, and I still can't escape the sexism. But like false prophets and all of that nonsense, they paint fake portraits of us for their profits. The world sees us through their eyes as an object, but our minds are more vast than the ocean, and our beauty is complete as we are. While they chant all that noise and commotion, our presence shines bright from afar. Together we'll walk through the fire, and we'll make the smoke our shield, and this dirty media complex will burn to death at our heels. The brothers who love us will join us, and their love will protect and support us, and we'll bask in our own divinity, like sunlight and sun rays, and someday they'll all say, woman is the door to experience infinity. That's Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you. That was an awesome poem.
Thank you.
Awesome poem.
Thank you so
When I
much.
went to talk to you after class.
Okay.
I need your assistance on something. You want to help.
Okay. I'm gonna do, you bring out the Oakland in me.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites because Oakland is the home of Merritt College, but it's also the home of the Black Panther Party. And it reminds me, though you might not know this, I didn't say it to you last time. It reminds me of the women of the Black Panther Party. Because, as Che Guevara said, at the risk of seeming ridiculous, a true revolutionary is guided by a great feeling of love. And your poems, as you said earlier, are so full of love.
Thank you. You had a quick question?
Yes, I wanted to know if I can record you doing it on my phone, do you mind?
Oh yeah, it's fine. It's being recorded there too.
You want to come up here?
And it's on YouTube. That's fine.
And he's, you know, the Peralta TV is going to have all of the her poetry and also all of the presentations on Peralta TV YouTube. Okay?
All right, y'all, bear with me, because this is from this book. So yesterday I forgot, but I'm determined to remember it all today.
It's okay.
Oh, okay.
We're with you, as they do, and they do like that.
Okay. You bring out the rebel in me, the dark velvet feline, tender and fierce, a beautiful Black Panther. You bring out the West Oakland African in me, the warrior queen who took burnt land and grew culture like forest on indigenous burial ground. You are the one I would try to stay home for. Maybe, just maybe, have another baby for. Allow you to enter my sacred spaces and pray at my altar before dawn. You, just you. You bring out the 79th and Lockwood in me, the 92nd and Hillside, the attitude that melts plastic and sets your libido on fire. Phonies get scared, but you bring it out and get ignited. So I keep it lit, 100% for you. You bring out Haiti, Angola, and Brazil in me, the Atlantic and Caribbean Sea, the diaspora Black in me. You bring out the Olmec stoneheads with cornrows, the Mayan Kemetic connection, the Ifa, Santeria, and Candomblé in me, the Pentecostal Vodun high priestess in me. I could lead thousands of slaves to freedom and still come home and surrender to you. You bring out the black-eyed peas and collard greens on New Year's Day in me, the no religion having sinner in me, the questioner of all things, the answerer to my own intuition, the creator of my own rhythm, the pretty girl with ebony eyes, the one that Stevie Wonder made songs about, the one that lures tourists into ghettos, favelas, and shanty towns, the one the gentrifiers seek. You bring out the quilombos in me, the Angolera and Hyena and Zinga in me. You bring out the Holy Ghost, hallelujah, church on Sunday talking in tongues in me. and it's just Friday afternoon. I now pronounce you all mine. I will paint your body in red ochre, douse you in the fragrant scent of God's liqueur. You can play in my locks when we're done. I will cross your heart with my beads of sweat anointed in lilac wine. Now everyone will know you are mine. You, my love, only you can get this. Love the way an Oakland woman loves. Come, let me show you now. So I did that after Sandra Cisneros, inspired by Sandra Cisneros, You Bring Out the Mexican in Me. I feel like all those experiences I just described, all those cultural ideas, for me, it all started in Oakland for me. You know, there's so much richness in Oakland. And I just wanted, when it all falls down, like if there's an artifact that anybody finds, they find this poem and be like, oh, this is what Oakland used to be like? Oh, okay. So, yeah.
I just want to say thank you for that. Like Professor Huggins said, that's my first time hearing it, but it totally brought me back too. Like you reminded me of sitting in the living room and listening to people do this and play music and play the drums and they like it was a different time. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
It also reminds me of the similarity of oppressed peoples all over the globe and the role that we all have in that and the unsung faces and hearts of the women behind it all. And I'm not being partial at all when I say that, I'm just being honest.
Well, it's interesting because I performed that piece in Oregon at the Shakespeare Festival as a part of this play called Party People that was about the Black Panthers and the Young Lords. And I performed that piece during a noontime talk they had. And it was so surprising to me because, of course, I write it and I feel like I'm speaking from my Black experience and I'm speaking about Black things or things that I think are related to me. I know I talk about the Mayan Kemetic connection, the Olmec stone. That's what I'm thinking. And in Oregon, it was like people who come from different places. That part of Oregon, they came from different places and they set up kind of an enclave there, very cultural. But in the audience, it was mostly Caucasian, middle age, and I was like, I don't know if people were gonna relate, right? This woman came, first of all, they lined up to get books. And I read that poem and I read the imperfect poem. And this woman came up to me and she said the line that resonated with her the most was about, I could lead thousands of slaves to freedom and still come home and surrender to you. And it was not a color thing, it was based on a woman thing. Basically, she felt like that was such the struggle, how to be a mother and still be feminine, how to raise your children and still be, you know, powerful and feminine and beautiful. And that's why I say, when I started off saying, your unique experience, if you're vulnerable and you're honest, everybody will relate to it. Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for being here. I'm sure people have other questions, but I just want to thank you again on behalf of the class.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh.
And your classes are so wonderful. This one and the last one, when I came in, they sure I felt comfortable. Okay.
Can you speak a little louder?
Her voice is.
I'm not from Oakland, I'm Southern California, and so I was wondering, listening to that, if that's more of a memory of Oakland, and you think Oakland has changed, or if this is something you still speak.
So the reason I wrote You Bring Out the Oakland to Me, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of change happening, especially in West Oakland, you know, a lot of what they call gentrification. And then when I was growing up in East Oakland, my grandmother used to tell me, she was like, you know, this is the ghetto, we live in the ghetto. And it was a lot of paradoxes to that because she still drank her fine wine and her baguettes. And I'm like, that's the ghetto for real? But she was like, this used to be white. And then the Black people moved in and it was white flight. And then as an adult, I moved to West Oakland. And that was like, I knew the history of culturally of it being the place, kind of like a downtown for Black people, right? A lot of artists and musicians would come. And then now it's such that a lot of black people I know are being forced out their homes, or they can't afford to stay there, but then there's a lot of people from San Francisco who are coming in. So seeing all of this, I was like, what is Oakland gonna look like for somebody down the road? Not that things changing is bad, but what is the story that's gonna be told? You know, that's the thing. Like, is this story gonna be lost? Are people gonna remember who was here and who created what here? You know, the history. And that's why I say that I grow culture on an indigenous burial ground, because I've also known that that's indigenous burial ground over there, right? And then so starts off with that, and then you have black people growing culture there, and then now you have the gentrification process. So I wanted to show as much as I could from what I could see, all those different layers. Mm-hmm.
I'm not a native from the Bay Area, period, and what you're saying, you know, I met some, because I live in West Oakland now, and I met some people, you know, a lot of them are older, and they were telling me all the rich history, like Black Panther Party started there. I thought, like the sign on the Gardner, I thought the little thing, I thought that's where it started from, but it started in West Oakland. I met a doctor, a psychologist that's pro-black. I met a lot of, you know, richness in history, and they were telling me a story very similar to what you're saying about what West Oakland, what it was about and what it represented. And it was pride, and it was power, and it was unity and solidarity, and, you know, for justice, upliftment, and all around. And what I see there now, you know, again, I'm not a native, and I was just like, where is it?
Yeah, it's kind of dead. It's like a ghost town.
There's just a lot of oppression, self-suppress, a lot of negativity. There's still beauty in there from what somebody pointed out to me to look at. You know what I mean? But as far as a whole, and what you're saying about the changes, you know, and color and whatnot, I see that going on too.
But I don't even necessarily think that's just in West Oakland. Living in East Oakland, I stay on Havens Court, and I'm not, you know, it's weird, but I mean, it's a lot of, you know, white people.
Oh, it's been
Asians,
gentrified over there too.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, I'm not used to that. It's kind of uncomfortable, but then again, it kind of makes me feel safe for some reason. Like, it's iffy.
Well, because certain resources are then put in place for when other people come in.
One of the reasons why it's so important for you and all of the speakers to come to this class is so that we not only talk about what is missing, what is lacking, what is wrong, what could be different, but that we do something about it. That we're thinking strategies like the Black Panther Party did. The class, as you know, is focused on the community survival programs.
Oh, okay.
So Merritt, by next year, hopefully, will have a food pantry for students. That idea was directly tied to the Black Panther Party's food programs.
Right, so much the free breakfast in schools, right? The free lunch and all that. And, go ahead.
Well, all I wanted to know, I don't want to stop you, all I wanted to say is you can do something different. You can do something different, not just for the class, for the final, but with your great lives. And you're very open, understanding hearts and minds because you're from the communities that need the support. And what happens along with gentrification is that people come in and they say, okay, here's what these people need.